Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yorif, and I hope we meet you well. Certainly, it was a busy day yesterday, and that was like the culmination of a whole extended process. And now we have the two, well, can one say, main gladiators in the 2023. Maybe I should be careful there because, quite frankly, they're not, APC and PDP are not the only guys in the field. There are other parties as well. But in the popular space, people think of them as the guys, the main guys. Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday became the candidate of APC. And we'll talk about that today. First of all, let me just say that, well, to most of our regular viewers who know how we do, usually you have, you know, your own say in it as well. But in the past 2 or 3 days, it's been hectic, and I think you understand why. We hope to remedy that today, because for today alone, they will extend the program to 2 hours. We won't close at 12 noon as we usually do, or just before 12 noon. We'll extend it another hour till around just before 1 p.m. That should give us enough time to, for you people to call in and for us to get as many perspectives as possible on our subject matter. Now, my guest this morning, right here in studio with me, is Mr. Yemi Makwadero. Yemi is a governance and strategy expert, also a member of the Media and Publicity Committee of the APC Special Presidential Convention that has just closed. Thank you very much for coming on, Yemi.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure to be here.
Well, you know, I will say my own. It's been a long time we've seen you, but we'll take what we can get.
Yes.
You used to be our friend.
It's always a privilege to be here.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Now, the 2023 election and the emergence of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I thought we could do an overview today. Right up until just before, or on the day itself, nobody really knew who indeed was the party of APC. And by that, I mean the party, who indeed was the candidate that the whole party was going to throw their, weight behind. That wasn't clear at all. There were all sorts of red herrings, if you remember. What is it now? The Senate president and the chairman, they had their own drama. Subsequently, we were to hear that the Senate president said, I'm not part of that. They even dragged the president into it. It took Garba Shehu to come out and speak for the president and say, no, the president has nothing to do with this. All those shenanigans. And, well, at the end, of course, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he made it with 1271 votes. And that was, it's as if, at everybody else, he still beat everybody else. If you were to give the score of everybody else to one person, Tinubu still beat all of them. Give me your perspective on what has been referred to also as something of a day of long knives.
Well, to start with, let me just say that it's really not a surprise that a lot of intrigues, a lot of backwaters, a lot of back and forth, took place in the APC. Don't forget, it's a ruling party. The second reason is the fact that there is a president that is exiting. And typically of democracies, especially presidential variants of it, whenever an incumbent is leaving office, you always have this litany, of potentials who look up to succeeding him. Someone who has worked with a lot of lieutenants, a vice president, ministers, party leaders, you expect that practically a good number of them would think, they have an edge in that, they have a very good relationship with the president. And I think from his body language and perhaps from one or two things he has said, he probably has me in mind. And so it was not unexpected that you had a very large field of presidential hopefuls. However, some of the intrigues that took place, approaching the convention itself, it actually made things to be very unpredictable. And I must say that even the eventual winner of the primary election did allude to the fact that, he was more or less intoxicated by the victory. And what that meant was that it must have been a very hard-fought contest. Looking at the final...
sorry, sir.
Yeah.
I think there was even a place where, well, to the extent that you can believe what you read on social media, Tinubu is reported to have said that, you know, I didn't actually expect to win. And that's why, even though that's not his style, he expects to win, and the man is tenacious. He goes for hell for leather, so to speak. But I read somewhere where he said, you know, it happened and I didn't actually expect it. But please continue. I just thought I'd add that anecdote.
No, that's even a good anecdote. I mean, it's relevant and it ties into the whole, you know, scenario. You see, there are many battles actually before that final battle of voting. I imagine that not many pundits will doubt the capacity of Asiwaju Tinubu to win any direct or indirect election.
In a fair fight.
Yes, in a fair fight. But again, there is always a process that leads to the eventual voting or the eventual event of selecting who the candidates will be. Just cast your mind back a few months ago in March, a whole lot of people, you know, had expressed their intention and, you know, desire to become the chairman of the party. But at the end of the day, there was really no contest. Someone who never asked anyone for one day, to the best of my knowledge, eventually emerged the chairman. So, and everybody gravitated, you know, towards him and lined up behind him. So, perhaps, you know, the current party chairman may not have emerged as the chairman of the party if he had contested an election for the chairmanship of the party. So there are several ways that leadership can be thrown up. And I guess that is what Asiwaju actually meant about, by saying that he never expected to win. Not that he never expected to win an election, but that there were a lot of booby traps that apparently were on his way and on the way of all the other aspirants as well. And so eventually crossing the Rubicon must have been really intoxicating.
Now, a lot of work went into what the outcome of yesterday's event. Look at the way people stepped down, for example. That's an important part of it all. Even the sole female candidate, she stepped down as well. I think it was Governor Akpabio who led the field in stepping down, and about 8 of them also stepped down. There's a sense in which you can say that was not expected because they were all talking about it. Fayemi stepped down, for example, and Fayemi, just days to the event, was talking about the seriousness with which he was pursuing this particular objective, and quite a number of them like that. So one begins to wonder what exactly changed. Yeah, it's it's more or less like old news now, but what informed all of that? It was part of the, shall we say, dynamism of the whole thing?
Correct. I mean, everybody starts a race believing that it will win. But as you inch closer to the finishing line, there are occurrences around you that send signal to you about how far your strength can take you, and then the weaknesses or the stumbling blocks that may prevent you from breasting the tape, first. And there are different also, how do I put it now, desires, that fuel ambition. And so if the intention is to make sure that we have a competitive primaries whereby the most popular, the most electable will emerge, then some of us have a responsibility to make that contest, to be keen. You see, the keener a contest is, the better the eventual winner, the better result, the eventual winner post. And that is why in an Olympic race, for instance, most records are broken on the final day when the best of the best have emerged. And so when people step down, they already have an indication that there is somebody that is ahead of them, that has a better chance of winning, and so there is no need to go all the way. Let me make this contest not a winner takes all, because again, that is the way politics should be. It should not be a winner takes all, and whoever wins was still going to need everybody, to come to the, picture in going for the general election. So I want to imagine that some of the even strong contenders, because certainly Governor Fayemi was not seen as a weak pretender. As the chairman of the Governors Forum, there are reports everywhere that he seemed to have the backing of a good chunk of the governors. And when you know that it's the governors that practically this time around exclusively controlled the delegates based on the Electoral Act, which forbids statutory delegates, then it's reasonable for people to assume that it must be one of the leading candidates. And of course, there were also reports about some shortlisting from, to 5 or to 3. And he was, a recurrent name. And so I think the one that was really surprising was that of the former Akwa Ibom State Governor and the immediate past Minister of the Niger Delta. Coming from Akwa Ibom State, and judging by the geopolitics of Nigeria, one would have thought that he either steps down for, say, Ibe Nayade, or Ibe Nayade steps down for him. And when you look at the chunk of votes that he was bringing to the table, 93 delegates, I mean, if only all the delegates in Akwa Ibom voted for Godswill Akpabio, he probably would have come fifth, fourth, fifth, and that would not be a bad finish from a crowd of 23. So I think it was the Akpabio beat that actually was the most unexpected. For the other ones, Fayemi, Amosu, Dimeji Bankole, you could say it's also a fallout of the negotiations that took place behind the scenes, the meetings by some of the party leaders like Baba Konde, Aremo Oshoba, who felt that, look, there is a need, to enhance the chance of somebody from our, geopolitical region.
Southwest geopolitical
yes, to win the ticket by not whittling down or, dispersing, the votes coming from that region. Again, there was also, an example, so to speak, set at the PDP primaries, where, a Tambuwal decided on the day of voting to step down for the eventual winner. And a lot of people have used that symbolically to underscore the kind of, affinity, unity, and oneness that, it's always demonstrated by Northerners. And on the other end, that in a way, Southerners have a way of going to the wire all the time. So
is it just Southerners? Southerners and Southeasterners?
Southerners, Southwesterners, Southerners generally.
Southerners generally. Okay,
yes.
okay.
You see, because, I mean, usually and historically, yeah, there are historical facts to support, that allusion. I guess they just wanted to rewrite the history that, for once, our people from their own part of the country can actually line up behind someone who is even seen by other, parts of the country as a leading light of the contest.
It wasn't a light journey at all. It wasn't even an easy journey. Tinubu was all over the country on these consultations. There are people who were saying that is one strenuous kind of a schedule, but it was going all over the place. And talking about coming down to the wire, towards the end, just days to the convention, remember he was in Ogun State, where there was something of an explosion. Now, I wanted to allude to, look, if you want, Tinubu style is Tinubu style. He had been doing it perhaps the conventional way, but you could say that, in fact, people did say that there was a bit of desperation perhaps when it was now clear that people were going to be unrelenting in erecting obstacles, in peddling falsehoods, and generally lowering his contributions, sort of taking it easier. So the man said, wait, I don't care if it's below protocol or we are going to say this thing the way it is. A diplomat might have said it differently, but Tinubu said it the way he is, and there's a sense in which that could have been a turning point, because now the stakes were known, the knives had been drawn. Say, look, we're not friends anymore. You people continue to do unfriendly things, to put it mildly, and I've just had enough. There was that explosion. What part do you think that played? Of course, since then, things have been made up.
No.
We've seen both parties, the governor of Ogun State and Tinubu, we've seen them in pictures. Things have been made up. What part did that explosion, take in all of this?
Well, really, it's difficult to know
because
whether it enhanced, obviously from the outcome. It's obvious that what people refer to as a breaking point or a tipping point, or something that was provocative said by the candidate, by the aspirant, the then aspirant, actually didn't affect the outcome. Now, again, you are dealing with people who just didn't know themselves yesterday. And I think it's also a salutary commentary on the part of the Mr. President that he did not take that personal. Knowing the kind of presidency or presidential system that we run in Nigeria, the president is invested with so much power that even at the Eagle Square, he could still decide to influence the outcome of the process. I mean, we have seen that over and over again.
But to his credit, he said before the event that no imposition will be made.
I even have it on some authority. I won't say impeccable authority, but it's something that you could assume will have happened. That there was even an attempt, by the aspirants to try to explain that, look, that statement had nothing to do with denigrating you. And the president's response was that, no, don't bother about that.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, they've come this far. And so that's why it's difficult. When that outburst came, people refer to it as an outburst because just a few minutes of that engagement was, circulated on social media. But when you watch about 12 minutes of that interaction, it's very easy to situate why he said what he said.
Indeed.
And a lot of people actually, excuse him, even if it was a form of indiscretion, because they felt that, well, this man had been making people far back.
What part of what he said was untrue?
At any rate, it's never on record that he ever said any such thing about him being, responsible, or attributing victories of other people or their political ascendancy
it's not his way
to
of
himself.
Speaking. Yes.
It's people that always said that all along, even the opposition. I remember one of the presidential aspirants of the PDP was on national TV to say that if Tinubu were to be a member of the PDP, he and a lot of other people will not be contesting, that he will have been given the ticket on a platter. But I imagine that just the same way, our mothers, while growing up, occasionally would try to, browbeat us, by saying, you this child, I carried you in my stomach for 9 months. I poured blood on you. I did this and did that. It was a way of resetting our brain. So I imagine that what, what I just said must have hurt a few people who are really not critical to the outcome of the election, but those who were critical to it actually understood.
They were understanding.
Yes.
And a lot of people moved in. And Tinubu himself has since said that, far be it from the thought of those people who thought he was throwing shade on the president, that he respects him far too much, and that would never be the case. And just as you say, these people have been coming. It's not yesterday.
Yeah.
So they know themselves, and Tinubu was even saying that even beyond the party, he's sure that President Muhammadu Buhari still has a lot of contribution. So if, touch wood, everything goes well and Tinubu becomes president, it was indicated in that statement that he will still be leaning on the wisdom of past elders, not excluding President Muhammadu Buhari.
There is no doubt, in our presidential system, as a former president, you're going to wield a lot of influence. I imagine that one of the reasons that our party, I mean the APC, does not have a board of trustees now is that usually, typically, it will be a former president, you know, that occupies, you know, such an office. So I want to suspect that going forward, a former President Buhari will still continue to play a significant role in the APC as far as the general administration of the party and then the governance of the nation is concerned. Whoever emerges, you know, the president.
I imagine that first of all, they're mending fences, closing ranks, because they know that the most important thing before them now is to now begin the quest. And there's not all the time in the world. We keep on saying, yeah, it's 2023. That's not as if it's 5 years away. And so, you know, we've heard that people usually prepare for this kind of a journey, sometimes up to 10 years beforehand, you know, all sorts of different strategic ways. But there probably will need to be some sort of rejigging, or shall I say, gathering together again within the party, because the NWC of the party clearly was at odds with the chairman, you know, and they played a crucial role. For instance, when they denounced and denied and totally rejected the consensus matter that, no, we don't know anything about that. Nobody consulted us. So these are part of the day of long nights that we were talking about, that somebody came up with that idea. It could be destabilizing at that. In fact, it was the day, if I remember, it was the day before the election. You know, but all of that, I think it's in the realm of history now.
And all the lessons learned, hopefully.
Hope. I like the way you added the word hopefully.